Peace and blessings, family. It's your girl, Zakia Harris, aka Shapeshifter, aka Oyadolu, coming forth with a message today on this day of April 22nd, 2020, 444. We're on a 444 day, harnessing the four directions, harnessing the four pillars, understanding that this is a foundational day for us. I'm doing this video from my home in lovely West Oakland, California. Having some hair opportunities, so the head wrap season is on full effect during this quarantine. So today I wanted to talk to you all about this notion of doing versus being. We know that when we look at the systems of white supremacy and patriarchy, many of them are rooted in these notions of original sin, rooted in notions that we were born without, we are born lacking, we are born in sin. And our mission in life is to do as many things as we can do to repent, to rebuild, to accumulate things. And so that in the end, we will be worthy enough to be accepted into the kingdom of heaven and have eternal life forever. We contrast that with the indigenous systems of African cosmologies and our indigenous systems of life and how they viewed the world. And they viewed the world as, oh, you are God. You are made up of the same thing as the Most High. You actually are a microcosm of the divine. And we know that science is beginning to catch up with these practices, because when you measure the elements in the sun and the moon and the stars, you actually are made up. The human body is actually made up of those same things. And so that's where the notion of as above, so below comes from. For those of us who are born with wombs, we know that you are actually born with all the eggs that you will ever need. And your mission, part of your life path, is to cultivate and catalyze and fertilize those eggs in a way for you to bring new life into existence. And I think that's such a wonderful analogy outside of having children, to just understand that you were born as a microcosm of God and with absolutely everything that you will ever need. You were actually born with it. And so that's why these societies put so much energy into naming ceremonies and rites of passage and all of the various ceremonies that you would go through in your lifetime, because that was the community's opportunity to remind you of your gifts, to remind you of your purpose, to remind you that you are divine. And so when we really examine this notion of doing is a notion that is very much rooted in masculinity. It is rooted in the masculine principle. Even if you think of the penis is an external part of the anatomy that has to initiate. It's all about going out. It's outside of itself. It's not an internal part of your body. It's external, and it's all about doing. And again, we hold the divine masculine, the divine feminine within us at all times. And you contrast that with the divine feminine, this sense of what is within, what cannot be seen, what is surrendered, what is mysterious. When you think about planting a seed in the soil or anything that goes into a womb, you don't get to watch it grow. There's just some shit you don't get to see. And we trust, and there's a level of trust and surrender, knowing that you're giving it the right conditions, right? If you're thinking about a garden, you're giving it the right sun and the soil is right and you're giving it water, knowing that a pregnant woman, you want to feed her and give her the right conditions for her to birth this new life. But there's a trust that there's a power at play that you don't control. And there's also an understanding that power is organic. It happens naturally. There's nothing you really have to do, right? Doing is also rooted in this reptilian brain. The reptilian brain is the part of your brain that's fight or flight. It's the part of your brain that controls what you can see. It's when you are in danger. It's the part of you that wants to survive. It's a survival mechanism, and it's a mechanism that we all need. And it's a mechanism that is really rooted in white supremacy, because many Europeans grew up or have a system that is based on lack. It's based on, I don't have enough. What can I have? What do I need to accumulate? What do I have to see? I have to be able to see it. I have to be able to touch it. I have to be able to measure it. Everything is about metrics and outcomes. Everything's about research. I have to see it and calculate and quantify it. If I can't see it, it doesn't exist. If I can't see it, it doesn't exist. Versus indigenous cultures saying, no, actually, the most important shit, you don't even get to see. And sometimes you don't have the eyes to see what something is in the moment. You see things later on. That's where the analogy of hindsight comes in 2020. Hindsight's 2020. You can look back and you can see something and be like, oh, okay, I totally understand why that happened, but I didn't understand at the time. And so we have to draw on that indigenous wisdom now, right? That even what we think we are seeing, there might be something bigger unfolding here. But if you're only basing what you can see on what the news is telling you and what the government is telling you, which are the products of that system that we just talked about, there's a lot of shit you just not gonna see, family. You know, I think about when the recession hit in 2007, 2009, I lost my home to foreclosure. I went through a divorce. I lost my job. When it was all said and done, I actually had to go home. I had to move home to my mama's house. And I had to move home to my mama's house with my daughter. This is the childhood home that I was raised in with my child. And when I talk about how humbling an experience it was to move home when you think you out here doing it. You know, I have a college degree. I spent a couple years in law school, and I had owned a home, and now here I am moving back home with my mother, with my child. And during that cycle that now is like, you know, over 10 years ago, I recommitted myself to building a life for myself that was not going to be swayed by the marketplace, recommitting myself to my spirituality, recommitting myself to my wellness, recommitting myself to doing purpose-driven work in a way that allows me to withstand changes in the market. So it doesn't mean that I don't grieve. It doesn't mean that I haven't had loss. It doesn't mean that I don't have challenges, but it does mean that I don't get rocked by challenges in the same way because I have something that cannot be taken away. And so that's part of the notion of hindsight being 2020. Now I can look back at that time and I can understand, wow, I had to go through all of that to get to where I am today. And there was no amount of skipping steps that I could go through. And so we've been called into this Sankofa. The world is having to go through its own Sankofa. The world is now being called to go home, to go back before you can move forward, to go back to fetch it, to go back to do that inner work. I call it the junk drawer time. Right? We all have homes. We know how you have that drawer that you don't really want to look at. It's like, oh, I'm going to get to that later. It's got cords, papers, all types of shit in it. Let's be real. Some people got junk drawer houses. You got some friends who got junk drawer house. Your whole house is like, well, damn. You see them come out the house. They look shining and bright. But you like, how do you live like this? It's just so much clutter and things that they don't want to address. Well, now we're being called to address them. And it's not about looking outside at what the world is doing, right? It's easy to cast doubt on the government and to look at the narcissism in the White House. But what about the narcissism within yourself? It's easy to cast judgment on the sexual predators of Bill Cosby and R. Kelly. But what about the sexual trauma that you've had to go through or someone in your family has had to go through, right? So it's easy to look at the health inequalities that COVID-19 is presencing. But what about the health practices that we need to be doing? Right? We're being called into that. We're being called to look at that, to go through the junk drawer, to throw the things away that are no longer serving us, to say, oh my God, when you find something in the junk drawer and you've been looking for it and you want more of it, to say, ooh, I'm going to harvest this. I want more of this in my life. I forgot about this. I'm ready to let this go. That is what we are being called to do right now. And we're being called to do it because as we move forward, and I don't say going back to normal because we don't go back. As we move forward, it's going to be us becoming these new people who have done this inner work, who have done the Sankofa processes in our own lives, those are going to be the ones to lead, to midwife, to survive this transition. Because we are very clear that this is life or death. This is adapt or die. You literally are going to adapt or you are going to die. You are not going to make it. And so that's the invitation right now. And what's so powerful about the invitation is it's not an invitation of having to do anything. It's an invitation of being. It's like, what does it feel like to be in a beautiful place and to wake up and to have an amazing spiritual practice that grounds you, where you're in conversation with your ancestors and your spirit guides, and you understand that you're in a divine flow, and you have a relationship with your body, and you feel strong and you feel connected to it, and you're putting in your body the things that are serving you and giving you optimal health, drinking that water, that good green juice, getting loved up, having them orgasms, even if it means you give them to yourself, doing purpose-driven work that you love to do every day. That's a beingness. And when you're being at that state, you are at a vibrational frequency and you're drawing into you all things. Like attracts like, right? So all of the things that you like, you are a vibrational match for them. And so you're getting a chance to check, right? This is like the checkup when you go to your doctor. What are you a vibrational match for right now? And it's through the cleaning of the junk drawer. It's through the Sankofa, through the doing the work within ourselves that we get to see how we're going to move forward. And that's the beauty of this. So it's about human being versus human doing, and trusting that and knowing that through the beingness that you can actually call in all of your heart's desires, even more so. And you know what you've accomplished through doing because you've done it your whole life. So why not try something else, right? What do you have to lose? Allow it to be the experiment, a grand experiment of your life where you are the grand superhero and you're writing the chapter of your next epic saga. So with that, I also want to talk to you a little bit about my newest coaching program, which is going to be starting May 17th. I've been doing life coaching for the last 2.5 years. This is my passion, my purpose, bringing together my 2 decades of experience as an entrepreneur, as an artist. I'm also a initiated priest of Oya in the Sheshe tradition. I'm a mom. And I have developed and gleaned and received downloads on my own practice, which I call, or framework, which I call the Shape Shift Your Life framework, which looks at the pillars of spirituality, creativity, and career, and the sweet spot between all of them as a way and as a blueprint, as a medicine bag of tools, if you will, that can allow us to architect and build the scaffolding for our own personal level up. I've been doing it one-on-one for the first time ever. I'm doing it as a community offering because I understand that we heal together. And so we will be in circle, even though it's a virtual circle, with other purpose-driven women like you. And we will be going through these pillars. You'll have homework. You'll get a free copy of my book, Shape Shift Your Life. It's also going to be a sliding scale offerings for the first time. I have 3 ways to pay because I know that folks are in different financial situations right now. And so I want to honor that as well. If you want to find more information, you can check the link. I'm also in that link that will also allow you to set up a free complimentary 20-minute shift call with you where I will do some power coaching with you for about 20 minutes. I'll also have an opportunity to talk to you more about the program, see your coaching goals, and see if it feels like a good fit for you. So that is all for today, Shapeshifters. Remember, tap into your beingness. You are so powerful. There is nothing that you need to do other than draw in and be a vibrational match for all that you are seeking. So that's it for today. Until next time, keep shifting.